Welcome back to another episode of Business Journey Unlocked. Today I'm joined by Tom Sefcik, owner of PowderHorn Consulting. Tom and his team are the go-to experts for healthcare accreditation, boasting 100% success rate in helping over 500 organizations. Tom, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I'm going to turn it over to you since you'll explain yourself far better than I ever could.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me. Powderhorn. Uh, we work with organizations to achieve behavioral health and community service accreditability. Um, we do that to achieve, I want to say, uh, through consultations, accreditation with Joint Commission, accreditation with CARF. CARF is Commission on the Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. And what does it end up doing? Organizations are being, in some ways, forced to be accredited by the state, by insurance companies. And with that, they have to go to a higher level of providing services. They have to be value-based services. My history is I'm a clinical social worker, done that in the past, and I've got an MBA. Um, Back in my day when I was doing clinical work, there was no forcing by the providers to show us the value. Show me that this individual has improved, either
Mm.
reduced their dilemma, their dysfunction, albeit substance abuse, but show me something. And it wasn't then that was going on. Now it is happening that way. And rightfully so on the parts of the insurance companies and states to say, prove to us that value is here so we can continue to pay you for those things, those services. We've been doing it, like I say, almost 20 years, and it's grown over periods of time. We have organizations who have been with us for at least 15 years. So that's 5 surveys in some cases. We have organizations. I know of one in LA. You're in California. I know of one in LA who's one of our contracts. That organization is being touted as one of the best in the country for the last 5 years, is providing substance abuse treatment. I have another one in Connecticut, who this amazingly, that's been going on probably for 12 years. They've come back with outcome-based services, and they can demonstrate that to insurance companies, and they're getting raises. They're getting increases in what that organization will receive as far as funding.
Mm.
And that in this day and age, that's unheard of. So there's some excellent companies that we work with for multiple years. Very proud of that.
Yeah, I do enjoy that too because it really shows that they come back for a rightful reason. Okay. So based on the experience, based on the background you had prior to starting Powderhorn, what gap in the accreditation preparation did you observe in the healthcare sector that convinced you your background, your experience was the best ways of solving it in that aspect?
I think working with some of the companies that I worked for at that particular time, I worked
Mm.
for one in Ohio, one in Wyoming, and we were seeing that the industry was going in that direction. The industry leader typically has been California. And we started noticing with my contacts in California that California was saying either achieve accreditation, here's your choices, or we're going to cut your funding. So
Mm.
that became very, very simple. You either going to do this or you're going to be out. And I think in some cases, the approach by some of the states has been to weed out the mom and pops simply because they were small and nobody could really keep up with them and really determine, are they providing good quality services? What accreditation ends up doing for the states, I think, is that the states can now say, okay, Joint Commission, CARF, you're paying attention to the clinical side of treatment. we're going to pay attention to the administrative side of treatment and meaning the funding. We're going to be able to look at that and pay attention to that because we know you're doing your job on the other side. So that's been one of the impetus, to make this really grown over the years.
You briefly mentioned about the mom and pops organizations. Now, as we were talking before we started this recording, one of the biggest things is just actually starting the business, starting, the healthcare organizations. It's just, for me personally, I feel like that's a little, now this is coming from my perspective, it's a little negative in a way because I wouldn't say singling out the mom and pops, but it makes, because as you mentioned, it is hard to see their value, right? So in that case, do you think it was more of just a deliberate target, or if it's just more of like a industry standard?
I think it's the industry standard,
Yeah.
and but going over, part of that, there's a cost to do this,
Uh,
and an application for accreditation, not with us, not with Powderhorn, but one of the other vendors, Joint Commission Carbs, and costs $1,000.
uh,
And then you're going to have one or two, more likely two surveyors coming on site 2 days. Okay, now you've got $2,000 per them, so that's 4,000, 8,000, $9,000 right off the top. Boom. And that's not getting any, not having any consultants come in, additional cost on top of that.
I
Um,
see.
so, I mean, this is an expensive process. And if you have an organization that might be, have a gross revenue of 250, 500,000, that's a lot of money. But, the alternative is to not provide services or not be paid for your services. So you got to balance that out.
I think the hardest things, especially starting out, any company, any organization is transitioning from, your 9 to 5 to actually becoming a business owner. From that transition for you specifically, what were the most challenging processes you had to overcome to build the early momentum in Powderhorn?
Getting my act together, really having all the T's crossed, I's dotted. I mean, even though I had gone through accreditation myself with my companies and achieving that, now it's living it day to day.
Mhm.
But then the other part of that is you can see the benefit that goes on with this. You can see improve organizations improve. I take an approach. My approach is my goal is always a 3-year accreditation. If you skip some things and you still get your 3-year, you're golden. Because I've seen organizations start at one level and 3 years later improve to another level, and after that, keep going up and improving, becoming a business. Yeah, and that's part of what, the accreditation process is. This is a business, and organizations somehow have to, sit back and think, "Oh, yeah, I'm just not providing services. I'm not doing this an outpatient treatment or residential program. I'm providing services as a business, and it has to be profitable." And I've had numerous times folks have come back and say, "But we're a not for profit." And if you don't make a profit, then you've got a problem. You have to be able to make some money in order to achieve, to expand, to hire staff, to give your staff a raise. You have to do all of those things. So this is a business that, and folks sometimes and especially in the beginning, 10 years ago, they weren't paying attention to that. They didn't see that, but it really is a business that you have to focus on and provide good quality services. Because some organizations, insurance companies, us, CARF, consultants coming in are going to look over their shoulder and say, "What did you do and why did you do that? And did Joey improve? And if so, how did he improve?" You have to go through all of those processes.
The one item I did enjoy that you touched on is that you helped their company grow within the accreditation process. So when people actually see the value in their work as you do, it helps you want to do help more companies as well, more organizations. As you mentioned before this call, you helped so far 520 companies,
Right.
right? You actually enjoy what you do. It's not just a simple service. Like you're actually helping provide the standards, provide the safety in order for them to grow and expand their company. Because as you mentioned, at the end of the day, it's a business. It needs profit, but it needs standards. And that's the biggest thing with accreditation, is just building those standards, making sure everything, as you mentioned, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And that's the same thing with everything that you're doing. So,
Right.
as you mentioned before, your firm is known for 100% accreditation success rate. Based on that, what is the single most non negotiable in your system and your principles that you drive for that success rate?
They I almost want to say they have to pay attention and listen.
That's the
And
easy part, right?
that, I mean, in some ways, it is. We'll have organizations that say, "We know better," and no, you don't. You haven't done it 500 times. You're doing it your first time, your second time.
Hmm.
So, that's to be successful is to really have a good relationship with one another. But okay, and I'll say the other part that I always say um, is I'm candid and not very tactful. And part of that means is because, yes, we've done this 500 times. We know what's going to be accepted and not going to be accepted. And you need to pay, they need to be able to pay attention to what we're saying to them. And then you have to do these certain things. If there's an expectation to be doing that, we're not shooting for perfection. In the carf world, we don't have to be perfect, but we know my term, what are deal breakers. If you don't do these things, you've got a problem. And if you're going to get close to, if you can't get a 3 year, but it's a 1 year, if you're getting close to a 1 year, yes, I can't say that over the air. Um, but we will have a come to meeting, and we will have that because I will say, and my colleagues will say, because they've worked with me, and everyone else is an independent contractor, so they do their thing, and I don't tell them how to do that because they're independent contractors. But yeah, we kind of follow the same path. That if you don't do it, we're going to tell you you got problems, and you're just going to waste some money. So the other piece, and I want to jump in because that goes back to something else you said. In some ways, why am I doing this? What have I seen? Um, y- being older in dirt that I am, um, this is a legacy for me. And part of that legacy is I've seen organizations improve from where they were when we first met them to where they are later now. And when I see that with organizations, I also see that they're doing better work with the clients that they serve. And that's what this is all about. Improve the
Hmm.
organizations and improve those services to those clients. And yeah, that becomes a legacy for me. Yeah.
And that's beautiful because it really shows the impact that you did in your work to help their organization fulfill certain needs and services to their clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The
that's
part of my history going back is when I graduated with my bachelor's, I started working at a juvenile institution in Illinois, and I saw kids come out of Chicago, and they had just committed murder, and they were in this high security here. And you looked at some of those kids, it's like you have no idea why that took place or how that. And I saw kids that were 6 years old. It's like what? That made no sense. But I saw that kind of happening, and then from there, eventually, a few years later, moved into a child protective service. And because of me and my size and being male, I was one of the first two people going on site if a child was being abused.
right.
So that's part of the history too. Seeing how can we improve that so that doesn't happen. So more history of me.
Given the rising pressure for regulatory excellence, what is the one strategic shift that healthcare organizations must prioritize right now to maintain the sort of resilient compliance program that you're boasting out?
The That's an interesting question, difficult question. It for me, it goes back to value-based treatment, and that you can demonstrate and you can prove that individuals that are being treated are improving, um, and actually see that in the final product, what's going on with the adults or kids,
Mhm.
because on both sections are being treated. Good question.
I find the biggest things, especially when starting out any organization, is just trying to figure out the system. And as you keep going, you grow and expand and you find things that stick, find things that don't. And as we mentioned, you've done 520 different organizations in the healthcare space. So each time you must be learning something new, something different, different, or it could be the same. I'm not too sure if it's a one size fits all or if it's different on different circumstances. But based on that, based on the system that you have as a whole, is there certain frictions in the healthcare organization preparing for, let's say, high stakes accreditation? And if so, how does that kind of limit your availability or their availability to scale their services?
They I think what the accrediting bodies don't take into account as much as they may need to or should is that these are companies, and they're small companies, and they don't have a lot of staff, and they got a business to run. Oh yeah, and by the way, you've got to achieve accreditation. You've got to follow these policies. You have to document that you follow these policies.
Hmm.
So we try to find maybe a happy middle ground where we do achieve and follow the policies to a certain extent, maybe not to the fullest, but still we also realize they have to run a business and you can't do absolutely everything. So in some ways, what can you get away with and not do?
Hmm.
But that becomes a struggle for organizations. And we've had organizations, 5 people, 10 people. We've had that up to 250 individuals and working for that company. And it's still kind of the same way. What do you have to do to achieve this? And how do you make that happen? And when you get to the larger companies and that are multi-million dollar businesses, they, they may use this the first time, but after that, they've learned the system. They learn how we were doing it and approaching it and being successful. And they pick it up and take that internally. But I still see their
Yeah.
names, in years that follow that they've achieved that accreditation again, and they're continuing to do that. Um, it's a process. And the other part of it is, and what we end up trying to do is making sure after they achieve their accreditation,
Hmm.
don't forget about it. Don't think, oh, you've got another 3 years before you address it again, because you'd be amazed. Don't blink and you're already at 2.5 years, and you've had all this stuff you had to do that you didn't do. So you got to make up for that.
So correct me if I'm wrong with my understanding. With my knowledge of accreditation, you can't do internal accreditations. You can't pretty much audit yourself. But what you just said briefly is that you came into their organization, they learn the process that you do, and then they applied it to themselves. I don't think that's true. That can they actually do like an internal audit, internal accreditation? Because I feel like that's kind of biased, in my
They
opinion.
they they could do it. They can do an internal audit. I think maybe that's the best way for you're
Okay.
saying it. They should be doing that. There are certain there's a multitude of T's crossed, I's dotted that they need to pay attention to.
Mhm.
And if they paid attention to the way we've set it up, they know how to approach that. They know the
Okay.
material that they have to demonstrate. They have
I see.
all of that knowledge, but can they follow through? And our task, after they achieve that first 3 year, our task, if we continue, if they want us to want to continue with us, is again to hold their feet to the fire, not as hard as we had done the first time, the first year, let's say, before they achieved their original accreditation. But after that, maybe we're getting to get together every quarter for a couple of years, and then that third year we start doing it annually or monthly. Sorry, monthly. We start doing that, and organizations have picked up, and they know what they're looking for. And the other parts, I nag pretty well. You know, that's part of the job, and you're paying for that. You're paying for someone to uh, really say you're not doing what you need to do, and if you don't do this, you don't improve this, you're going to fail. And if you fail, it's going to cost you more. So if
Right.
nothing else, from a monetary standpoint, you're going to have to do that.
Okay, yeah, I see that. That clears up my confusion. So with
Okay.
your company, looking ahead going into 2026, what's the next major technology or system investment Powderhorn is needing to kind of future-proof its operation to make it long lasting?
Wow. Uh, yeah, I'm thinking, the natural answer is going to be AI, and how we can use that better, and make, you know, in multiple ways, analysis being one, because there's multiple analyses that we have to do. And even though we may be able to, crank that through AI, we we also have to fine tune it, for a particular organization and their unique set of services that they provide. So it's just not, tell AI to look at it, a particular report and come back with an answer, but then it's actually do more beyond that. So
Yeah.
that's going to be something that's going to be, very important for us to know.
I find with AI, it's I've said many times before with many people, it's constantly evolving every single day.
Yeah.
Whereas now can be completely different where it's gonna be end of 2026. We just don't know where it's gonna be, and for companies and organizations that don't implement AI in some sort of aspect, because there's different ways you can use artificial intelligence. If you're using it for a business sense, if you're using it for analysis, like you, for example, then yeah, that'll help your
Yep.
team either do more accreditations, have more workflow, more autonomy, and just focus on bigger and better things. And expansion, business development, that's an optional. That's a clear cut and dry of using it the right way, plain and simple. But if you're using it for just silly, mundane tasks, what's going to happen? You're going to be too dependent on artificial intelligence, as some people are on a personal
Right.
level. Now we're going more personal because I've seen a lot of horror stories of people using artificial intelligence for simple, mundane questions that need very little brain power. But then what happens? They use it all the time. And it's hurtful to see that because that shows that people are lazy to do their own due diligence, do their own research because they would just trust what this artificial intelligence is saying. And how does it get those programs? It gets those programs from humans. So there's a lot of talk that they're saying, oh, artificial intelligence is going to replace our jobs. Sure, naturally, artificial intelligence will replace some jobs, but there are jobs that they would never replace. For example, blue collar trade. Never in a million years will artificial intelligence be scaffolding or scaling buildings or just build. They can maybe help with the blueprints, but they can't actually
Right.
do the ground up, right? In that
Right.
sense, sure, it's good in that aspect, but it comes to a point where it's like, how much could it really help me? You shouldn't overly depend on it. Sure, it can help me with the analysis part, but obviously I still have to review it. Trust but verify. But then again, it saves you, let's say, from 2 hours from doing the analysis, doing everything. I'm not too sure how long it takes you from start to finish, but let's say hypothetically 2 hours, right? It can cut from 2 hours to, let's say, reviewing the 20 plus pages within 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. That saves you more time to do more operations, more accreditation, which would help you grow and expand and gain your clientele.
What we would use it for is it would never be used, I think, as far as clinical services, as far as treatment, outpatient treatment, individual therapy. I don't see it ever being used there. Where we use
Oh,
it
no.
is just like you said, to analyze a set of data. One of the things certainly that I would end up using is if I have incident reports, which means any sort of event, medical error, violence, multiple things that are considered incidents within a facility. You can plug that in there and ask it to analyze, and it'll come back with an analysis of. And you can come
Right.
by site if it's a multi-site organization, which does, yeah, it's quick and it can be trained to be looking at certain material and giving responses that we would have never been able to come up with. But then you still
Right.
have to go through that and you still have to glean and saying, okay, what fits, what doesn't fit, what's necessary here. So it's just not here it is. But the other side of that is I've seen organizations and heard of organizations who did not have a consultant use AI, for policies. And it's can come out pretty easy that you can look at that policy or that plan, that the organization was supposed to develop and realize, this is not written. This is written by AI. It can come out pretty quickly that way. So that puts the organization in a problem. They have a problem to deal with. And they might be calling us to help them with that problem.
I agree. It kind of puts them in a pickle, especially from the fact if they don't know what they're talking about. I've seen
Right.
people write up these amazing emails, and then when I go talk to them about it, they're like a fish out of water. I was talking
Yeah.
to a director of operations for a security company a couple weeks back, and he mentioned all these applicants. They got amazing resumes, but when they come in, they're talking like they've never said or done any of this stuff in the resume.
Right.
So with that aspect, it is a little daunting because then it's from the fact is you don't know what's true. You don't know if this person really does what they say to do, if they have the background and experience. That in of itself is a little scary to think about because they can make it seem so perfect. So like, wow, this guy Jerry knows X, Y, and Z, but when he comes in, he barely knows ABC.
Right.
What's happening?
The
Where are the 2 connecting?
We've seen in what organizations I'm dealing with one currently, and they have to write a risk management plan. And the risk management plan that I was reading of theirs, risk management plan policy. And the risk management plan policy is I'm going to write a plan. So it was a page and a half of all the detail of what they were going to write a plan, but there was never a plan. And that comes out pretty obvious. Like you didn't answer the question, what's the plan? And you have multiple, in my world, you have multiple plans that you have to write and they have to be tracked. Yeah. How did you do with the plan? How did you improve?
Mhm.
If you found problems,
Before
what are you going to do to fix
before we wrap up here, what is the one piece of wisdom or insight you hope listeners take away about building a resilient, high quality healthcare organization in just the complex regulatory environment that you're in?
it? Ask for a mock survey. Ask for an consulting group, whether it's ours, whether it's somebody else's. Um, if you think you're ready for a survey, ask them to come in and see what you have. And if you've got it, they'll give you a thumbs up and bravo, you move on. And if not, then you've got some things to worry about and fix. Because we're all here for the same reason is to improve that environment, improve that facility so they can provide better services to those clients. Um, but ask. And then even when surveyors are on site, they're not auditors in that sense. they're consultants. They can be seen as consultants. Yeah, they're going to point fingers and say, "Did you do this?" and "Where's that?" and all that kind of stuff. But they're also going to be very helpful in saying, "How could if you ask the question, how could I do this better?" So asking for help is I think one step that people can end up using and improve, and that's what it's all about.
I find if people shift the mindset of this person coming to do the accreditation, do the audit, if they view it from a point where, okay, what can I improve on instead of, this guy's coming, what is he gonna say? Like once people shift that frame, then they would have more of a likelihood of being more reactive. I'm not too sure, given your experience, if you had organizations upset or dissatisfied with you actually coming, but then you would change their mindset. Okay, like this is what I saw, this is what I can improve upon, and these are the steps and actions in which to take it. And then what happened? I would say from you, you would say that they grew a lot better, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And usually, one of the standards is in my world is if you ask 3 times for a document, I already know you don't have it. So tell me you don't have it. The world is not going to end if you don't have something.
Mhm.
But say that, and then the other part is have everything available. For the auditor, the surveyor, that they can find the things they need. You know, Part of it is our strategy is real. One of our strategies is very simple: make it as easy as possible for the surveyor to come in and find what they need. You don't have it, okay, life goes on. That the world will not end. You will have a deal breaker right there.
Exactly, but people think it is gonna end because they don't have it, and then they go into this huge spiral. But it's okay not to have it. That's how you
Right.
learn for next time. That's the
Well,
beauty of it.
it's a smile comes to my face on both sides. Both sides is what we try to end up doing is pull the package together so the organization has their act together and everything they need. And then at the end of the survey, it's not unusual for the surveyor to come back and said, "That's the easiest survey that I've had because we have everything for them. Good, bad, indifferent, it's all there." But then on the other side, the organization side, yeah, they're in panic state. They're in panic state for days before the survey. Um, and after that's over with, and after it's done, you say, that wasn't really that bad. Wasn't that difficult. Again, because we had everything together.
Mhm.
And you get past all that. Yeah, there's a lot of questions, but then there's how can we improve? And what can we do the next time? And that's important.
Exactly, and nobody's perfect.
No.
People, organizations make mistakes. It's from the fact is if they keep making the same mistakes, they're not learning. But if they learn and don't make those mistakes, that shows you they actually took what you said and applied to their standards, whether it's safety, whether it's educational, whether it's
Yep.
just, just even practical standards. And that's
Yep.
all that matters.
Yep. It is.
Going
Agreed.
on a personal level for you, what is one habit or belief that you carry day to day that has allowed you to succeed to where you are within your life and within Powderhorn
Wow.
Consulting?
You get the big questions.
I try to ask, I try to pick people's brains when they come on here.
I think one thing that's real important for me, and it's important for me is that this is I'm not this is Powderhorn is not Tom. Powderhorn is a group of 10, 11 people. I have been very blessed um, with the individuals that have joined the organization and the services we provide, and the testimonials that we'll end up getting, from organizations on how they really appreciate their particular contractor. The only time everybody sees me is when they're signing contracts. My name's down on the bottom. I'm signing the contracts. I don't do all the contracts. This past year, I did very few. It's been mainly the others that I felt the other contractors I thought were actually, I thought they were better than me. They're more skilled. And at times I'll have conversations with them through a Zoom call, and they'll bring up something. It's like, geez, I never thought of that. I've seen reports that they've written, that it's just superb. And in some ways, I know in one particular case, this one contractor said, "I learned that from you." It's like, really? You know, I thank you, but they've gone beyond, much further beyond where anyone might have thought they might be at this point, and they're just they're exceptional. So I'm very proud of my group, and what we've done in the 520 and the ones that we still are going to come up with in 26 and beyond. And it's a
That's
great,
beautiful.
yeah,
That's
it's a good,
absolutely beautiful. And it goes to show that when you hire world-class colleagues, there's stuff that maybe you didn't think of that they thought of and like, "Oh, this is why I hired this person."
yeah,
This really shows their true value, and you need people like that. You need partners, you need people in your team that like that because it's a group effort too.
yeah,
It's not just Tom,
no,
it's Tom and these 10, 11 other people that make the whole team go round.
we
Sure, yeah,
will,
you're at the head of it, but if it wasn't for these people mid and bottom, you won't be here at all.
yep, and we're all at the same level. I mean, and we've had
Okay,
exactly
beautiful.
what you said,
Mhm,
um, that someone will come up with a situation that they will have a problem that we haven't dealt with and addressed.
mhm,
And that email will go to all 10, 11 of us. And then we'll respond. And now we've all improved and raised the bar because of the question and the response. We're there to
that's
help each
amazing.
other. And if somebody's got it, just something came up and it was interesting and made the offer to everybody, that's, back in when I originally, started this whole thing in 2009, not 2006. It was me, and that's it. I was grabbing all these things and putting them together, but each time we added somebody else new to it, to the team, we continue to expand and improve. Yeah, it's a good
Mhm,
company, and we provide good services, and I'm proud of that. Yep. But
that's
back to the
amazing.
legacy. So,
For anyone who's listening or watching this, Tom, what's the best place for them to reach out either to you or to Powderhorn Consulting?
www.powderhornconsulting.com. You can sign up there. Actually, I made the decision a number of years ago, 6 years ago. Kevin Robertson is a contractor who works with me. I live on the East Coast. I live in just north of Philadelphia, and Kevin lives in San Diego. And for the first 15 years, whatever the heck, I was taking all the calls, all the leads, which also meant when somebody in California was dialing, like you, at 5 o'clock in the evening, they're dialing me at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm,
And yeah, that became an issue. And part of it is I would lose some calls and possible contracts. So Kevin's taking all of those. He gets that. And we get together and we talk. Whenever we're going to sign a contract, he's talking to me first. And then we go from there. But even then, 99% of the time, it's the right answer. When he says, I think it should go to this person and that person, it's the right answer. So we have that.
exactly, and it's just having people in other places as well. Sure, he might help take some off your plate, but at the end of the day, it's all one team, one mind, one hive
Right.
mind.
And we're all throughout the country and, and even in Canada. We provide
Yes,
the services in US and in Canada, but all the contractors are all throughout the country.
that's amazing. Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure. Take care.